After completing a previous short film, Cold October, I really had no plans of making another short film for a while.
We weren't necessarily planning on making just another short film. We'd made several short films and we were kind of waiting to see where theirs were going to get to. Mike called me one day from another set that he was on and said, "Hey, I got some interesting news."
The idea for the film came from actually a conversation I was having with Kyle Bainter. I had been working freelance video production and commercials with Kyle Bainter for a while, and during one of those shoots for a TV commercial, which he was using his camera and his 35mm lens adapter, which we then ultimately used in the film, I asked him about his interest in working in independent film. His response was that yeah, he'd thought about doing that before, but he wasn't necessarily a writer or director. He was, much more focused on the technical side and being a cinematographer. He said, well, if you've got something, if you come up with something, then yeah. Andy Gilbert and I sat down and we started brainstorming. We started with sort of 3 factors. I knew Kyle was willing to shoot a short film with us, and we knew we needed to keep it fairly short, and I knew of 2 actresses that were actively trying to build demo reels. Given those 3 factors, Andy and I sat down and said, what can we do with that?
From that, we started thinking, okay, well, how could we make a character-driven drama focusing on 2 actresses?
We tend to work backwards.
So we did the thing where one of us sat down with a notebook and the other paced around and said, well, what about this? Well, what about this? What about this? And then, I would say, well, what about this? And what about this?
In the process of 4 or 5 hours on a Friday afternoon, we basically hammered out the outline for the story of Always Reaching, and then began the writing process.
And through it, we came up with probably the strongest script that we've ever written. And again, it all started with, hey, we want to work with this cinematographer and a couple actors. Mike and I have a very similar philosophy of film, that we're not going to make films that don't have some meaning to it. Always Reaching is a very entangled story of these 3 people, all good friends. 2 of them are married. It deals with forgiveness. It deals with fidelity, courage, and friendship, and love on some of the deepest levels that we've ever written. So again, forgiveness is one of the main themes that I think we would take away from this.
I'd actually directed a couple TV commercials with Kyle as a cinematographer, so we already had kind of tested the waters a little bit there as to that working relationship. Kyle's been somebody that I've been able to work with really well in the freelance video world. So I thought, well, let's take that to the creative independent film world and see what happens there.
When I started seeing some of the dailies and when I was watching how well everything was being lit and how well the actors were doing, I was saying, wow, this is really good. This honestly could go somewhere.
Well, first of all, on a technical side, it's the first short film that we've shot in DVC Pro HD as opposed to HDV, so a better high-definition format than we've used previously. It's also the first short film that we've gotten to do with film lenses. It's definitely got a better quality as far as the look. It's also the first film we had a professional cinematographer. It differed also in the sense that we really had quite a crew for this film, and it was really for the first time that I felt free to really concentrate on the performances of my actors and spending time with the actors on set. Part of it was shot in Goshen, Indiana at the Goshen Theater, which is actually owned by a church called Downtown at 808, and they were kind enough to let us shoot in their facility. The rest of it was shot in South Bend, Indiana. Actually, one of the locations was Andrew Gilbert's place, and also out on the East Race. We shot this film over a rather long weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we had a dedicated crew and cast, and we got through it, which is good because we got what we needed.
Our excellent crew was really on top of things. Brennan Campbell was an invaluable member of the crew. Brennan was the first assistant director, and he was right next to Mike the entire time saying, hey Mike, what do you need? He was always there to say, hey Mike, here's the time, we need to move on, we need to cut a shot, we need to keep going. And him and Mike worked really well together. Another key member of the crew was Kate Chaplin, and we're really lucky to have her. She was the script supervisor, and she was really on top of things. Kate was there to watch every little nuance of what was going to be shown in the frame. And she was bubbly and cheery for the entire time, just an invaluable member of the crew. We love working with people that really want to get into film. That's just the people we surround ourselves with.
The casting for this film, much like everything else in this film, happened a little bit backwards. I actually knew Jenny Sophia from college. I hadn't had much contact with her since graduating. But she was doing makeup for a commercial shoot that I was running audio on, and we got into a conversation there, and she mentioned that she was trying to get into more acting. So I mentioned, well, you know, my thing is actually a little more independent film, and her eyes got big. And of course we have, you know, a long-standing relationship with Rachel Cottam, who's been in several of our films, and she's an incredibly talented actress who also was, you know, actively working on building more of a demo reel. That was a lot of why, even in coming up with the concept of the story, I really felt like, why not do something where we've got two strong female characters? And then we needed a guy. We needed someone that could play Jacob and play him really well.
Well, Jacob was a really hard character to cast.
We wrote the script without anyone in particular in mind for that role.
Mike and I had both said, you know, it might be kind of cool to play it ourselves. But Mike, of course, doesn't like to act and direct at the same time. At least not yet. Maybe he'll go down that road, but at least not yet. We were just thinking over and over, who can we cast? Maybe we're gonna have to do a casting session for local actors, or you know, maybe honestly we could get someone from Chicago. And finally one day I called him up and I said, okay, Mike, look, I really, really, really want this part, and I'm gonna do anything I can to get it.
So we talked about it for a while and said, yeah, let's go that route. I think that'll be the best, and it worked out really well.
When you put on the eyes of an actor, you see the script a lot differently.
It was first filmmaking experience for Jenny.
This is the first time I've ever really had any scenes with Jenny. We were in a play together in college, but we never shared the stage really. And so it was great to get to work with her.
She did an excellent job.
She loves you.
A lot of what I try to do with actors is just really talk about the characters a lot, and in a good back and forth, so that together we create characterization.
How would George Clooney do it? How would George Clooney do it? How would George Clooney do it? Okay.
Which is great, because as a director then sometimes you're discovering things together with the actors that otherwise you would not have discovered on your own.
Mike is such a great director and is very hands-on with the actors, while at the same time very open to suggestion.
Maybe she's wandered up here at this point. Maybe she's actually just sitting here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I particularly appreciate the creative process of helping to draft the characters and bring them to life by working with the actors. I guess I view directing in a much more organic, collaborative way, where my job a lot of times comes down to saying yes or no to ideas. Yes, I have a vision, and I have something I want to accomplish, a direction I want to go. There might be many ways to get there. That's why you work with talented people. That's why you have a great cast. That's why you have a great crew, because they're all going to help you get there in one way or another. And it may not be the way that you thought you were going to get there, which is cool. It's great to be pleasantly surprised. Directing has been a long learning process for me. Hands-on experience has, I guess, been the best thing for me. I have tried to do a lot of reading, a lot of research, you know, and better understand the craft. I'm not one of these that just wants to kind of think that I somehow naturally have the gift of being a great director or anything. Specifically how I approached the directing for Always Reaching, first of all, I wanted to give the actors a lot of freedom to play with the roles as they felt they should. I went through and scene by scene, beat by beat, you know, wrote down my own notes about what I felt was going through the characters' minds at the time, motivation for lines or even actions. And I certainly had all those things, and I didn't necessarily always pull them out, though. So a lot of my preparation was just thinking about the internal lives of the characters. A lot of how I feel about directing is just trying to steer the actors in the right direction. If they're already headed in the right direction, oftentimes I don't feel like I need to say anything other than, great, keep going. We've worked with Rachel Cottam several times, and as new filmmakers making no-budget films, you know, or really, really ultra-low-budget films, one of the things I find most beneficial in that is to work with people that have passion and are dedicated to what you're creating, what you're doing. And Rachel has been one of those people consistently, and she's very talented and has quite a range, and it's actively something that she wants to continue doing.
We've actually done several things in the theater realm, but never quite film. I have a lot of respect for her as an actress.
As a new filmmaker, I look at that and I say, okay, well great, you've got talent, you've got passion, so let's just keep developing together, and hopefully together we get material out there that catches people's eyes and furthers the possibilities for either one of our careers. This is the first film that we got to shoot that had entirely a data-based workflow. We shot entirely to memory cards, and then the footage was offloaded to hard drives right on set, which was great because then moving into post-production was quick. Everything was already on hard drive, loaded in, and all I had to do was bring it into Final Cut and start cutting. We wrapped production on Sunday evening. The following Friday, we had the first cut of the film.
Out, I say. 1, 2. Why then, it's time to do it.
My hope for Runaway Pen is that we clearly demonstrate that we're setting the stage here for feature films. I love short films. They're great to make, they're a lot of fun, they're a great experience, and they teach you so much. And yet ultimately the goal is to be able to begin making feature films and make a living. And also because feature films provide you a little more flexibility of format and story, and being able to really draw in an audience's attention and keep them there for 2 hours and tell them something. Maybe that is rather important, hopefully.
Emily, get inside!
So I'm hoping that this film catches the eyes of the right people. I feel like it's the best thing I've had the privilege of directing so far.
This is the thing that we really want to get noticed. I think my main hope for the film is that this is the thing that we can hang our hat on and say, honestly, this is maybe the epitome of our short filmmaking that we've done so far. This is what we can do. And getting this in the hands of investors to say, look what we can do with no money at all. Look how great this film can be. Just think how much further it could have gone with a bigger budget and more time to make it, that sort of thing.
I start chemo next week and I want to run while I can. You good for Monday? I'm leaving.
And I hope people can see that, they can see a real dedication to the craft of filmmaking, a passion for storytelling, and telling stories that matter, Because I also hope that audiences that see the film are inspired to think more about relationships and what it means to be faithful in a relationship, and what does it mean to forgive yourself. We all are in need of being able to forgive each other and oftentimes really being able to forgive ourselves, and sometimes that can be the hardest thing.